The most radical political prose ever written into a founding document of a nation is found in the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. He went further and wrote that when a government pursues a long train of abuses and usurpations, it's the people's duty to throw off such government. In a 1787 letter to James Madison, Jefferson wrote, "I hold it that a little rebellion now and then is a good thing. It prevents the degeneracy of government." In another letter he wrote, "God forbid we should ever be 20 years without such a rebellion." In a letter to William Stevens Smith he wrote, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is its natural manure." Thomas Jefferson was not the only radical poet of individual freedom. The words of James Madison, Samuel Adams, Patrick Henry, Benjamin Franklin, and others lit the flames for the age of revolution. Starting in 1775 with the American Revolution, which inspired the French Revolution in 1789, the Haitian Revolution in 1791, and the Latin American revolutions that began in 1810. This entire age of revolutions unfolded in just 50 years, but according to history, it cannot be described as grassroots rebellions. Freemasonry and the Illuminati were heavily involved. Freemasonry has been, and still is, closely related to the British Crown. The first American Masonic Lodge was established in Philadelphia in 1730, with Benjamin Franklin as a founding member. Benjamin Franklin was the Grand Master of the Pennsylvania Masons, as well as a member of the Lodge of the Nine Sisters in Paris, where he recruited French support for the Revolution. George Washington was a Master Mason of Fredericksburg. Paul Revere was the Grand Master of Massachusetts. John Hancock was a member of St. Andrew's Lodge, Boston. Masonic lodges were incubators for revolutionary ideas. And despite Freemasonry's origins under the British Crown, every Masonic leader of the Revolutionary era sided with the Patriots. The Bavarian Illuminati was officially founded by Adam Weishaupt on May 1, 1776, during the American Revolution. The Grand Orient of France and various Masonic lodges served as networks through which revolutionary organizers coordinated across national borders. A conference was held at the Rothschild Castle in Wilhelmsbad on July 16, 1782, where Freemasons and the Illuminati forged an alliance before the French Revolution erupted. Yuri Lina is an Estonian journalist, filmmaker, and author who argues that international Freemasonry, international banking, and the communist movement were all interconnected strands of a single project of elite power consolidation. Lina claims that both Lenin and Trotsky were high-ranking Freemasons, loyal to the International Masonic Council. According to a 1917 document, the German Grand Lodge stated that Lenin consistently represents the ideals of international Freemasonry. Both American communists and American bankers were instrumental in financing the Bolshevik Revolution. Lina frames the American Revolution as the first successful deployment of Enlightenment Masonic political philosophy against a traditional monarchy. According to Lina, the Founding Fathers were participants in a Masonic Illuminati geopolitical project to avoid a Christian monarchy by creating a secular republic, and was the template that was later applied in France and Russia. Looking back today, Lina's argument does not seem far-fetched at all. Western governments have been fomenting revolutions for over a century, and the astrological parallels between then and now, as well as the current political climate, suggest we may be seeing a new age of revolution. Several major planetary cycles are returning to where they were 250 years ago. Pluto, which destroys old power structures, moving from Capricorn to Aquarius. Uranus, which rules revolution, is returning to Gemini, which promotes sudden change and technological disruption. Saturn conjuncts Neptune at 0 degree Aries, the degree of new beginnings. And Neptune moves into Aries, a time of idealistic crusades and battles fought over freedom. On July 4, 2026, when America celebrates its 250th birthday, the sky over Philadelphia will more closely mirror the sky of July 4, 1776 than any sky since then. And the secret societies responsible for overthrowing governments are well aware of this. Greg Reese reporting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. Hope you guys are doing well. It is 9:07 p.m. on July the 5th, 2026. Hope you guys had a good 4th of July, i.e. Independence Day. I tried to stop myself every time I wanted to say Happy 4th of July because it is what it is, I guess, but saying Independence Day is probably a little bit better, even though we're not independent of those global rulers who are actually running the show, are we? Anyway, I hope you guys had a good 4th and a good Independence Day and a good weekend, good week thus far. So anyway, let's take a look at the news. We've got, quite a bit tonight. We may try and keep it a little shorter tonight just because I know a lot of people are still recovering from the holiday weekend. So we'll do the best we can and get through everything we can tonight. So anyways, let's take a look at this first one, HalTurnerRadioshow.com. Putin asked about striking Europe, ... Russian President Vladimir Putin was asked about a potential strike against Europe if, heaven forbid, this is a quote, if, heaven forbid, it comes to some sort of strike. Europe has no missile attack early warning system. They are defenseless. Instead of minimizing victims, casualties could potentially escalate indefinitely, end quote. The Europeans must also consider if those with whom we engage in such conflicts cease to exist, will the Americans even participate in the conflict at the level of strategic, i.e. nuclear weapons, or not? I have serious doubts about it. So that was also a quote. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And the most recent news over the last few days is that they may reach out, they may strike because they feel like they have to. Russia is getting backed into a corner, and they may indeed strike Poland. That is apparently what things are being talked about at the moment. So we'll see what happens, of course. I'm not sure if Hal has anything on this site about Poland per se, but that is the Europe they're talking about, striking Europe. It would probably be Poland. So that is something to watch for because they keep attacking. Ukrainians and essentially Europe through the NATO countries are attacking Russia, and it's not looking too good there, is it? So anyway, let's look at the next article. We've got, that's the only one from Hal's site. This one is, speaking of wars, this is something that, we report on pretty much every week as far as what's happening in Lebanon. But did you guys know about this huge explosion that happened a few days ago? Massive explosion shook the southern Lebanese village of Majdal Zun as Israel's military claimed it destroyed a 200-meter-long Hezbollah tunnel, which that's always what they say. We're blowing up the terrorists, but of course they get to define who's a terrorist. So they just blow up everything and everyone. The immense detonation comes despite a U.S.-mediated ceasefire framework. So if this is a ceasefire, imagine how bad the war would be between Israel and Lebanon aimed at ending hostilities, which, of course, Israel wants no part of. Or as we said a couple shows back, it's not Israel, it's Izrul. I-Z-R-U-L. If you're going to pronounce it Israel, you're actually wrong. It's Izrul. That's what all of the MAGA people say, like Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and people like that. True MAGA, they say Izrul. So that's what I'm saying now, too. Anyway, let's look at this explosion. I think it's hopefully going to play on this Al Jazeera website. We'll see. Israel triggers huge explosion in southern Lebanon. So yeah, it's showing different views of it, I guess. So that is that apparently is the terrorist network, 200-meter long Hezbollah tunnel. So yeah, but there are other maybe better videos on that. I saw another one earlier, and I just played this one just because it was one that came up in my feed here. So yeah, the explosion was massive, and who knows how many Lebanese people they killed, innocent Lebanese people that they killed, but they don't care. They just blow up anything and everyone that gets in their way. And they're literally worse than Hitler ever had dreamed of being at this point. So Israel is the new Hitler. That's what I'm saying. So anyway, that's second article for tonight. Well, it's really more of a video. And then we've got this one from the New American. This is actually, I found this one through needtoknow.news. But needtoknow.news, I guess, is taking the week off. There wasn't really much new news on that site, so we'll skip over that. But I did find this one, which is the New American, and Alex Newman that runs Liberty Sentinel, that Substack, also heads up the New American magazine. So Kennedy ends COVID EUA, Emergency Use Authorization declarations, but PrEP Act shield remains. 7 years after Washington rushed poorly tested drugs, shots, and devices into the fight against a new coronavirus, spending billions and killing and injuring millions in the process, and has finally discovered that the emergency is over. Well, mostly. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr., which, by the way, we need to start the countdown. It is now officially past July 4th. I am predicting he resigns very soon. I don't know how soon, but very soon. Probably this month. RFK Jr. has now moved to terminate the COVID-19 Emergency Use Authorization, EUA, declaration for drugs, biological products, and medical devices. But as long as the PrEP Act shield remains in place, the move looks less like accountability and more like a marketing exercise, dressed up as a ceremonial retirement of paperwork. Yeah, that does appear to be what it is. Terminating the EUAs, HHS described the move as a return to normal order. Yeah, 6 years later. The agency said the circumstances that justified those emergency authorities for COVID products no longer exist, quote unquote. I would say, did they ever actually exist? It also said that the FDA, the Fraud and Death Administration, I'm adding that, approved, cleared, and licensed products are now widely available through ordinary regulatory channels. Kennedy stated, by ending these COVID-19 emergency use authorization declarations, we're reinforcing public confidence that emergency authorities are temporary and targeted. Do you have any confidence in anything that's a public authority like this? Yeah, that's what's called a rhetorical question. Of course we don't. That sounds like a clean break, but it's not. The termination does not take effect immediately. The declaration for drugs and biological products will terminate 12 months after Kennedy's determination. The medical device declarations will terminate after 180 days. HHS said the delay will allow manufacturers, healthcare systems, distributors, and patients to move away from products authorized solely under COVID EUA declarations. In other words, the emergency is over, but only after a courtesy period for the industries that built businesses around it. Yeah. And didn't Pfizer just get another multi-billions of dollars for the next set of vaccines? Seems like that's what happened. I think I remember reporting that just a few days ago. Anyway, yeah. So if you were worried that COVID was going to come get you, you can now rest easy. RFK Jr. says the emergency is over. 6 years later. Just in time. Anyway, that's on the New American. Got a couple articles here from technocracy.news. Here's the first one. Technocracy's digital ID is being smuggled in on the backs of children. It always is, isn't it? They always name things they always say it's for the kids. And they'll put the kids in the names of the bills, and that's what we're supposed to believe it's actually for, which of course it's anything but. Patrick Wood here is the author of this article. He says, I've spent more than 15 years analyzing technocracy as a system of rule by engineered administration where the credential replaces the citizen and the dashboard replaces the vote. Technocrats have their requirements and they keep hammering on them until they get their way. In all those years, how many times have we seen digital ID come up? Just about every year. The fact is, technocrats need digital identity to work. Without it, technocracy is dead. You cannot administer what you cannot enumerate. You cannot meter, permission, or exclude a population. that you cannot individually identify. That's a great point, isn't it? Programmable money, social scoring, algorithmic governance, all of it waits on a unique, verified, machine-readable identity for every human being. I would add, hence, the mark of the beast. That is why the past 12 months deserve your full attention. The hinge pin for a digital ID is being fitted right now on both sides of the Atlantic. And the hand doing the fitting is wearing a child safety armband. The technocrats' feigned concern for children is so patently hollow that it borders on child abuse. And then the first section here is first the age check for minors, then ID for everybody. Britain ran the experiment first, so watch this pattern. In July 2025, the age verification rules of the Online Safety Act took effect. To protect children, adults were suddenly required to upload government IDs or submit two face scans to reach lawful content on Reddit, X, and Discord. The public understood immediately what an age check really is. It's an identity check with the bedtime story attached. The response was remarkable. VPN signups surged by more than 1,000% within hours of enforcement. One provider compared the numbers to what it sees during civil unrest. Millions of ordinary Britons, no manifesto required, simply refused to show papers at the door of the internet. These weren't extremists, as the government maintained, but ordinary run-of-the-mill citizens. 2 months later, the government showed its hand. The Prime Minister announced a national digital ID mandatory for the right to work. The pretext shifted from children to migrants. But the architecture was the same: no credential, no participation. That Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, happens to be a member of the elitist Trilateral Commission. Yeah, and just a sidebar, I would also add a right-hand man of King Charles III. Then the public won the first round. Nearly 3 million people signed a petition against the scheme, one of the largest in parliamentary history. Opposition came from every direction at once, left and right, Northern Ireland and Scotland. And by January 2026, the government retreated to a voluntary ID. Read the fine print, though. Digital right to work checks are still on track to become effectively unavoidable. The ID is optional, just as cash is optional once every register goes card only. Now watch American technocrats run the same play. In June 2026, the House passed the KIDS Act, a package that consolidated 14 separate child safety bills into a single vote. Its defenders point to language disclaiming any age verification mandate, and that language is real, but the liability standard does the work instead. Platforms face consequences if they should have known a user was a minor. No general counsel on earth reads that phrase and concludes that the company should collect less identity data. The Senate side is more revealing. Even if there are doubts about passing, a package is being negotiated that would trade children's online safety regulation for federal preemption of state AI laws. Sit with that switcheroo for a moment. The most powerful industry in history is offering to accept identity-adjacent rules for the public in exchange for removing safety rules for itself. The children are the currency, not the beneficiary. So, anyway, there's more here. The next section is always call them out by name. And then we have it's always the children. I remember back when the Clintons were in office, that was what they always couched everything in. It was always for the children, so therefore you have to pass it. And they're trying the same old thing with all of this as well. But unfortunately, it works, so that's why they're using it. Yeah, technocracy's digital IDs being smuggled in on the backs of children. That is exactly right. It's on technocracy.news. Full article is available at the moment. It will go behind a paywall at some point. And then this one, young adults in San Francisco hate AI. It's like having a dumb friend. There's a poster on a pole. Red Stop AI protest flyer with meeting details taped to a light pole in San Francisco on May 20th. Well, that's 2025. So I guess it's been going on for a while. News of the backlash against AI is growing. San Francisco is the heart of the AI in the world, and the culture is splitting in two. First, there are the AI tech workers themselves who have their own culture. Then there's everybody else. This is not isolated. Graduating classes across the nation booed commencement speakers when they told students that the world would be great because of AI. This is the death knell for the AI industry if it cannot convince the young adults to go along. AI leaders should rightly be in panic mode at this point. You think they are? I don't really think they are quite yet. That would be nice, though. Anyway, looks like there's quite a bit here on this article as well. New enough that it is still fully available. And links over to a SFGate article, sfgate.com, which is San Francisco's newspaper. So anyway, technocracy.news is where those two are. And then let's see here. This is one that I came across. We're just kind of jumping around a little bit in subject matter, but these are all important articles I came across tonight without enough time to sort things together a little bit better, but you'll get the idea. Secret Service member was Googling rooftop location of Trump's would-be assassin when shots rang out in Butler, PA. I saw that and was trying to figure out what he would be Googling. So this article, I saw this article on a different, I saw the headline on a different website and wasn't really convinced that that was what was going on. But this one I think explains it a little bit better. It is AOL.com. Of course, they know how to write really good news here for us to read, don't they? A Secret Service counter-drone operator futilely searched the internet for the location of the rooftop President Trump's would-be assassin was spotted on as shots rang out at the July 13th, 2024 campaign in Butler, PA. According to a Department of Homeland Security Inspector General report released on Thursday, the report concluded Secret Service, quote, missed multiple opportunities to detect, prevent, and disrupt, end quote, deranged gunman Thomas Crooks's attempted assassination of Trump. I would say not deranged gunman as much as, well, there's that, but probably programmed gunman, like as in CIA or FBI programmed gunman. Thomas Crook's attempted assassination of Trump, including shocking communications failures that resulted in the president's protective detail never being warned that an armed man had climbed onto the American Glass Research International Complex's roof. That was the building he was on, just 155 yards from the stage. Yes, but I'm sure that was completely intentional, that they weren't being made aware. At 6:09 p.m., local law enforcement called the Secret Service and Pennsylvania State Police communications room, warning them of a suspicious person on the AGR complex's roof, according to the damning DHS report. However, the Secret Service communications room supervisor and the agency's counter-drone operator did not ask for the AGR's complex's location, did not immediately identify it as a risk. And the supervisor did not even recall learning that the suspicious person was on the roof. So this is what this is why they do all this training, so they can totally drop the ball. Because he had delegated communications about the suspicious person to the counter-drone operator because it was a busy time, quote unquote, on Secret Service radios, and the counter-drone operator was sitting near him and offered to help. The 64-page report continued. Not knowing where the rooftop was situated relative to the rally site, the Secret Service counter-drone operator apparently resorted to Google. Instead of asking local law enforcement personnel for the AGR complex's location, the counter-drone operator searched online for it, and was still searching when Crooks fired his first shots, the report determined. At 6:11 p.m., just 2 minutes after Secret Service was informed a gunman was on the roof of the building, Crooks fired 8 shots at Trump, grazing the president's ear, wounding others, and killing one rally attendee. I still think there were multiple shooters. We've talked about all this before multiple times. I think he was certainly a patsy, but probably was also firing shots. Who knows who grazed his ear, and who knows who hit Corey Carpatore. But clearly, there, based on the acoustics that have been analyzed in the area, there were at least 2 shooters, it sounded like. I remember talking about that a long time ago. Says ultimately, though, members of the local law enforcement communications room were increasingly concerned by the presence of a suspicious individual as early as 5:42 p.m. The report continued. Secret Service communications room personnel did not identify Crooks as an urgent threat before he fired the shots. Moreover, Secret Service decision makers responsible for protecting Trump while on stage at the Butler event were not made aware of Crooks' presence at any time. That would be because someone wanted to get rid of Mr. Trump, and I think personally that someone was probably the same someone that most likely got rid of Charlie Kirk. And by someone, I mean a rather large entity that is a small nation state in the Middle East. And because they didn't end up KI-double-L'ing him, then they gave him a warning. They said, you'll play ball, or we'll make sure we don't miss next time, or something to that effect. Or we'll take out your family, or we'll do whatever. And now Trump, at that point, was completely compromised. That's just my opinion. I think he was really going to do the things he wanted to do up until that point, and that's when it all changed. Britain is now poorer than Mississippi, America's poorest state, according to The Atlantic. And, of course, we know they never lie. So this is, they're showing a side-by-side comparison here, which take that for what it's worth. But this is kind of interesting. If the UK were a state, so the whole UK, I guess. If the UK were a state, where would it rank among the 50 states? And you can see it's pretty high up most of the way through until you get down to GDP per capita. It's actually at 51st. GDP per capita measures the size of an economy. The other 15 numbers measure the quality of life. So per capita, it would actually be the 51st state. It would be worse than Mississippi as far as GDP goes. Pretty interesting, but it is number one in life expectancy, lowest homicide rate. Yeah, but probably they don't have a column on here or a designation on here for most likely to be run over by a car or killed by a baseball bat or have your head decapitated in the middle of the street or have be raped or whatever those other things are that the untold masses of migrants are doing over there. So life expectancy is ranked first. I tend to think that that's probably not exactly true. Lowest homicide rate, also first. Again, I'm not sure I buy that one. Lowest gun deaths, first. Yeah, they don't have guns. They're not allowed to have guns, so that's probably true. Lowest prisoner population, first. Healthcare coverage, first. I don't know about that one. Paid maternity leave, first. Statutory paid holiday, first. Years in education, first. Lowest road deaths, first. So it's first in all of those. Lowest drug deaths, second. Minimum wage, they're third. They would be third. And pupil performance, fifth. Environmental performance, fifth. Human development index, ninth. Lowest obesity, 10th. That's, some of these things are probably true. Some of them I'm not sure I buy. But yes, ranked at the bottom as far as per capita. GDP per capita. That is sort of strange. Hopefully, though, the UK will not be becoming the 51st state at any point. They should stand on their own and stand up for themselves, and hopefully they will. I have friends who are Brits, and I think they would agree. They don't want to be part of the U.S., but they do need to do something about what's going on and what's happening to them. I thought this was kind of neat. I've heard these stories before, and I thought we'd go through just a few of these. What happened to the 56 signatories of the Declaration of Independence? Being how yesterday was the 4th of July, Independence Day. It says today is written yesterday. Today is the United States celebrating the 250th or semi-quincentennial anniversary of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. July 4th marks the day Thomas Jefferson's revised draft of the Declaration of Independence was adopted. It would take months for the document to be signed by all 56 men who would eventually affix their names to it. Several key figures in American history, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, and James Madison, among others, don't appear among the signatories of the Declaration of Independence at all, having been serving in military roles or other capacities at the time. None of the 56 signers died as a result of their signature, but before the war was over, 5 would be captured, 12 would have their homes destroyed, and 17 would lose their entire fortunes. None of the 56 signatories ever renounced the cause of independence of their own free will. Here's what happened to the men who pledged our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor to the cause of American independence on the basis of self-evident truths. that not even a global empire or a king could deny. So I'll just read the highlighted points here on some of these. Thomas Jefferson served in a series of key posts, first as the U.S. ambassador to France, then as Secretary of State under President George Washington and Vice President under President John Adams. After he was elected president, an event dubbed the Revolution of 1800, Jefferson's egalitarian vision expressed in the Declaration of Independence came to be viewed as one of the most critical documents of the American founding. The first American, Ben Franklin, while Jefferson often gets the lion's share of credit for drafting the Declaration, Ben Franklin is credited with one critical edit to the document. Widely recognized as a multidisciplinary polymath, Franklin has been dubbed the first American by history for his early and long-running calls for American colonial unity. In the preamble to the Declaration, Jefferson had originally written, "We hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable," quote unquote. Franklin, who served on the drafting committee, replaced this with the version, "We hold these truths to be self-evident." Franklin later served as ambassador to France and lead negotiator on the deal to end the war with Great Britain, was the president, quote unquote, or governor of Pennsylvania from 1785 to 1788 and served as a delegate to the Constitutional Convention of 1787. Shortly before his death in 1790, Franklin made his last political statement with his support of a petition calling on the federal government to abolish slavery. How about that? The Atlas of American Independence, John Adams. Adams was nearly captured by British warships while leaving on a diplomatic mission for Paris with his son. So I guess that happened afterwards, yeah. That was in 1778. First founding father, Richard Henry Lee. Lee faced military attacks on his property, chronic stress that took a toll on his health, and a severe hit to his finances as the war hit international shipping and the tobacco trade that he relied on. Caesar Rodney, a lesser-known but critical signatory of the Declaration. Caesar Rodney, who rode 80 miles to Philadelphia while suffering from facial cancer to cast a tie-breaking vote for Delaware's delegation in favor of independence. Wow. The first signer, John Hancock. John Hancock's signature on the Declaration, the first, was so large that his name became an American idiom for one's signature. The Massachusetts revolutionary leader had been serving as president of the Second Continental Congress since May 24th, 1775. Hancock, aside from being the first signer, is the only person who actually signed the document on July 4th, 1776. Did you know that? Hancock was at the head of a massive commercial empire, deriving his wealth partially from inheritance and partially from smuggling. Had American independence failed, Hancock, as well as his family, would have lost everything. Then it talks about Thomas McKean. While historians are confident that McKean is the final signatory, the exact date is disputed, with estimates ranging from as early as 1777 all the way to 1781. So I guess it didn't all happen right when we thought it did. Or at least, me personally, I didn't really know when who signed what, but Richard Stockton is mentioned, and then others. Charles Carroll talks about homes that were looted, occupied, or destroyed. So yeah, kind of interesting, huh? So that is what happened to a few of the signers. There's more here on this article. 56 signatories of the Declaration of Independence. Pretty interesting, I think. All right, and then this one goes right along with that. This is from WNG.org. Rare copy of Declaration of Independence found in the British archives. Kind of weird, huh? You thought they would have burned it, but no, they didn't. A volunteer at Britain's National Archives earlier this year discovered a rare copy of the U.S. Declaration of Independence while cataloging a box of letters and papers from British Navy captains and archives announced Friday. The copy, printed for an Exeter, New Hampshire newspaper, just days after July 4th, 1776, is one of only 11 such copies known to have survived. It is the only Exeter Declaration found outside of the United States. Volunteer Michael Skurr found the Declaration earlier this year. It was included with the correspondence of a British Navy captain, Thomas Fitzherbert, who captured the American privateer vessel Dalton on Christmas Eve in 1776. When the Dalton was captured, its captain threw all his papers overboard, except for 3 documents: his privateering commission, his orders from Congress, and the Declaration, according to the archives. Wow. The British captain sent the papers to the Admiralty in London, and they were eventually moved to the office that became the National Archives. After Sker's discovery, conservators at the archives analyzed the 250-year-old declaration and found that it was in relatively good condition apart from a tear that they had patched. But there's no full picture of it here. It's just this shot, which I don't know if that's the copy here or not. So yeah, weird, huh? Rare copy of Declaration found in British archives. And it just happens to be found this year. That is kind of strange. Well, if you were worried, your fears can be laid to rest. So this is a landmark show. We've already stated earlier tonight that the COVID panic is officially over 6 years later, and turns out the deadly hantavirus outbreak is officially over too. So how about that? We've declared our independence from hantavirus as well. World Health Organization on Thursday finally deemed the 2026 hantavirus outbreak to be over, 2 months after the first news of the deadly virus on board a cruise ship. The final person exposed to hantavirus through contact with the passenger from the MV Hondius tested negative and returned home from quarantine on Thursday. So I guess it didn't kill everyone on the entire ship, like we were being led to believe. Anyways, yes, so you can sleep easier tonight knowing that the deadly hantavirus is now officially over. Isn't that lovely? And speaking of cruise ships and deadly things going on, I came across this, and sorry to subject you to this, but there's a point here. Turkey bans American cruise ship filled with LGBTQI plus passengers from stopping in their country. So Turkey doesn't want any part of it. The gay cruise with over 2,000 LGBT passengers, 2,000, was blocked from docking with Turkish authorities, saying the passenger's behavior does not align with the country's moral values, end quote. The passenger's behavior does not align with the country's moral values, so they weren't allowed to dock in Turkey. Yeah, where is the, you remember the story about what happened to the USS Liberty, right? And Israel torpedoing that ship, and of course it didn't sink, and they were blowing holes in it and doing everything they could to sink it. Imagine if that were to happen these days. And 2,000 people doing this on a ship. So if you ever wanted to know what hell would be like, and hoping that you never see it yourself, well, this might be as close as you get. I don't know. Could you imagine? I'm sure it was probably on its way to Tel Aviv, but it wasn't going to be doing any docking in Turkey. So kind of interesting, I think. Yeah, again, sorry to subject you to that. I just thought it was kind of funny. Turkey says no. American flag skydiver crashes into beer tent. So this kind of sums things up nicely for what our country's all about, doesn't it? Here it is. You can see him. Oh, man. I think what happened was, looking at this angle, it looks like the flag, it's so ginormous, I think the flag gets caught on the treetops and pulls him down. Right there. And he just goes straight down. Boom. Yikes. That kind of sums things up, though, doesn't it? As far as our country. American flag skydiver crashes into beer tent. Parachutist appeared to clip trees while carrying a giant U.S. flag during an Independence Day event in California. Yeah, it looked like the flag's what hit it, not the guy. It was an Independence Day rodeo in California. I was looking to see where it was. Sacramento. Near Sacramento is where it was. The parachutist was safe and suffered only a cut lip. Local media cited the rodeo's organizers as saying no injuries among the spectators were reported either. So that's good. Anyway, highly ironic, or maybe not. Maybe symbolic is the better word. Israel isn't leaving Lebanon, and Syria may be next. So Syria's next, and then Turkey's next, and there's so many other countries that will be next on Israel's hate map that they will be attacking. Israel's refusal to withdraw, Hezbollah's refusal to disarm, and new strikes near the Golan Heights point to a conflict that is expanding, not ending. Which is why it's a joke that there's any ceasefire even being suggested, because Israel wants no part of it. Simply, they will continue. Right here. Israel has no intention of leaving Lebanon. At least it won't do so now and on terms that would suit Beirut, not to mention Hezbollah and Tehran. Moreover, in parallel with the Lebanese campaign, West Jerusalem is reactivating operations in Syria. Israeli forces launched an artillery strike on the village of Abadan in the western part of Syria's Daraa Governorate, and according to regional sources, Israeli aircraft conducted flights over the rural areas of Daraa and Quneitra governorates near the Golan Heights. At first glance, it appears that yet another breakthrough has occurred on the Lebanese front. The U.S., Israel, and Lebanon signed a trilateral framework agreement in Washington, although 3 agreements have already been reached in the past 2 months, so it doesn't mean anything. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio presented it as a step toward the restoration of Lebanon's sovereignty and disarmament of Hezbollah and the dismantling of its infrastructure, but upon careful examination of the agreement, it became clear it cannot ensure lasting peace. It only creates a diplomatic pause during which each side will attempt to consolidate its own position. Yeah, I was looking to see about Syria. It says, at the same time, Israel is reopening the Syrian front. The attack on Abadan is not a random incident. In the area near the Golan Heights have long been perceived by Israel as a potential threat. Everything's a threat to Israel. Following the weakening of the Syrian state and the shift in the regional balance of power, Israel has changed its defense strategy in actively forming buffer zones around its borders. West Jerusalem expands its role in maintaining a security zone in southern Syria by the need to prevent attacks by armed groups. So yet again, they appear to be expanding what they're doing. Looks like Syria is next. Although I think they've already actively been, not necessarily bombing, but certainly doing things in Syria. Who knows exactly what. But pretty interesting though, huh? The Greater Israel Project, for sure. Another RT article, AI industry is effing insane, Palantir CEO says. Yeah, well, if you ever seen Alex Karp, he's pretty insane too, if you ask me. Alex Karp, whose company supplies artificial intelligence tech to the U.S. government, says authorities should not trust the industry. Yeah, I wonder if he said they shouldn't trust him and Palantir. He might be crazy enough to say that. Let's see what this is about here. Palantir CEO Alex Karp has unleashed a lengthy tirade against the AI industry, arguing that Western governments and militaries shouldn't trust companies like OpenAI and Anthropic with sensitive data. But I guess it should trust Palantir, is that right? Karp appeared on CNBC on Wednesday to discuss Palantir's recent infrastructure partnership with NVIDIA, under which the former will sell its operating systems powered by the latter's hardware, in other words, NVIDIA's hardware, and AI models to customers as an all-in-one data analytics package. However, the interview soon spiraled into a 20-minute rant from the Palantir CEO about the state of the AI industry. Most businesses and governments who work with OpenAI and Anthropic purchase tokens from these companies, which grant access to their LLMs, large language models. And last week's Diamond Report show, we used LLMs as part of the title. It was called Nightmare on LLM Street. If you guys happen to catch that. Large language models, LLMs, on a pay-as-you-go basis. While this arrangement generates vast incomes for the AI companies, their clients end up ripped off, Karp argued. And as they hand over their money and data while gaining no control over the weights of the models, essentially the tweaks that determine the choice the models make. Are we really going to outsource the battlefield of this country to the consensus view in Silicon Valley, he asked. That is effing insane. So I guess this is maybe the tirade and further interview that's being talked about here. Karp went on to accuse AI companies of selling their technology to U.S. adversaries while refusing to work with the military at home on ethical grounds, before branching into tangents about wealth tax, the far left and far right fear of warlords roaming the street building technology, and his personal relationship with Izrul. Yeah, he does have a nice, close, affectionate relationship with Izrul. Just so you know, if you didn't already. And you can kind of tell, if you know what I mean. You sound pretty angry, anchor Becky Quick interjected at one point. No, Karp responded, this is the voice of American business that is being channeled through me, the neurodivergent crazy person, which of course he is. He is that. Anyway, yeah, founded by Peter Thiel in 2003 with seed money from CIA, Palantir has an affirmative obligation to participate in the defense of the nation. So they're the heroes. They're the ones that should be the sole AI defense contractors, apparently, according to this guy. Maybe not. Maybe not. How about let's kick them all out? Let's not have any of them be the AI that the military is using, that the U.S. government is using. That's what I vote for. Oh, I forgot. What we vote for doesn't matter. Okay, and then, yeah, another French museum robbed despite special attention after the Louvre heist. The thieves got away with 4 million euros in jewelry from the Lalique Museum. This was in France, but not the Louvre this time, I guess. So, yep, robbed again. Well, someone else was robbed again. Talks about all the alarm systems and everything that had to get through. I wonder who's stealing all these things from the museums. Just all of a sudden. I wonder who all's been moved into the country called France over the last, I don't know, few years. I don't know. Just a thought. Just wondering out loud. Looking to see if they have any sort of idea who did this. If it says, I figure they would blame, quote, Asian men. That's what they always say. When of course it's not Asian men at all. They just use that word. The incidents triggered a national scandal over museum security, as it should probably. They reported, Le Parisien reported that the Lalique Museum was considered a sensitive site and had been receiving special attention since the Louvre robbery, but a source close to the investigation said the protection measures were not sufficient. Yeah, do you think? French paramilitary inquiry released in May found deep flaws in the country's museum security model, including aging infrastructure, staffing shortages, and inadequate surveillance. So it sounds like the perfect place to hit, huh? And as far as what they took, the break-in took place around 5:30 a.m. on Sunday at the museum in Wingden-sur-Moder, a village in the Bosren department near the German border. Several masked individuals forced open a door and smashed 6 display cases before fleeing with around 20 pieces of jewelry. The damage is still being assessed, but one source close to the investigation said the loss could be close to 4 million euros. Stolen items were made of crystal and contain no precious stones, meaning they cannot be melted down. So as far as what I said on possibly who did it, you have several masked individuals forced open a door and smash 6 display cases. That doesn't sound very high-tech, does it? It sounds like something that anyone who is sort of casing the place even just a little bit might have been able to pull off, especially when you have a situation where the protection measures were not sufficient. That might have been fairly easy to figure out, I'm guessing. So another French museum break-in. Shocker. Shocker for sure. Ukrainian press gang conscripts national hockey team goalie. I mean, is nothing sacred in Ukraine anymore? They can't even have a hockey team without conscripting guys from the hockey team to go die on the front lines fighting Russia. Draft officers reportedly snatched 4 members of the HK Kremenchuk while the athletes were training. Several key players from the HK Kremenchuk Hockey Club, including Ukrainian national team goalkeeper Eduard Zakharchenko and club forward Yegor Bezugli, have reportedly been press ganged into the Ukrainian army, according to a former teammate. And then, of course, I had to look up what press gang actually means, but it's conscription. They've been drafted, let's say, not too gently, basically just thrown into a van and taken to training, and then they'll be on the front lines in just a few days, most likely. So one of the top goalies and apparently one other forward, and not sure, it says several key players. So I'm not sure how many hockey players that they're stealing away to go serve on the front lines. But that just proves, though, that Ukraine has nothing left to do. They're going to fight to the last Ukrainian. And then once the last Ukrainian no longer exists, they will come for our kids. Yeah. Don't think it can't happen. Been talking about some of the goings on as far as the July 4th and Independence Day festivities. Well, did you know a black woman in Philadelphia won the July 4th Ben Franklin lookalike contest? A black woman in Philadelphia. See what that is. Maybe something else is going on.
I love cosplay. I love dressing up, and I already had this costume. So I just wanted to come and show everyone, what I made, because I like to sew, and, this is one of my first costumes. Why do you think you won today? I don't know. I think it's because of the wig. Like, the wig is very curly. I think it's also just, because I made it. I don't know, though. I was so unexpected. I was not expecting to win.
Yeah. She won because of the costume and the wig, and because she worked so hard on it. No, that's probably not why she won, I'm guessing. Do you see anyone else of that particular skin color in that audience? Note that how happy everyone is. And there are some other women back there, I guess, too. But, yeah. So they didn't pick the person who was least like Ben Franklin to win the contest. They said it's the person who was the most that looked like Ben Franklin in the lookalike contest. Yeah. So I don't think that's necessarily true, but that's what they think in Pennsylvania. DEI at work. Yeah, and here's the Gateway Pundit article. Philadelphia woman took top honors in one of the city's most unusual Independence Day traditions, winning the annual Night of 250 Benjamin Franklin's lookalike contest, despite bearing little physical resemblance to the founding father. It doesn't matter. She has the correct skin color. That is all that matters. And nothing against her. I'm sure she's a nice person, but still, when you look at the contest and the fact that she won, when she probably looks maybe the least like Ben Franklin, tells you a whole lot. Okay. So I know Nick Fuentes gets kind of a bad rap. I personally don't mind him. I think he says a lot of, I would say, he says a lot of things that I might not agree with, but he does say a lot of things that I do agree with. And let's see what this is. I've not pre-auditioned this, but I do think the lead up here to it might make a lot of sense. Nick Fuentes reacts to Trump making $600 million by scamming his supporters. That's not all. They've brokered deals with multiple countries as well and scammed them too. They've made the Biden administration and Hunter Biden and everything that was going on with everything happening in Ukraine and all the millions and millions of dollars that the Bidens made. They've made that look like chump change. Trump has. Says the This sitting president of the United States rug pulled his fans. Have you ever heard of such a thing? This is an analogy of how the whole Trump movement works. The entire thing is a scam. So this is an 8-minute clip. We're not going to listen to the whole thing, but I wanted to hear a little bit of it, see what you guys think as well. So again, this is Nick Fuentes.
So first, you have the Trump coin scam, which is just, I don't know how he got away with that. How is that even possible? The president rug pulled, the sitting president of the United States rug pulled his fans and supporters. Have you ever heard of such a thing? He created a digital asset, completely unregulated, this Trump meme coin, and told everybody to buy it. He said it's going to be the basis of the financial system, and this is an investment, all this kind of stuff. Everybody bought it. And then people that he told about it in advance sold all their coins to his fans who were buying in, and they rug pulled it. Trump and his cronies used his voters and supporters as exit liquidity after he won the presidential election to the tune of $600 million. The president of the United States scammed his supporters out of $600 million, not only off of the rug pull itself, but also making money off of every single transaction. The second aspect of it is this World Liberty Financial. This is a cryptocurrency firm, and their main product is a stable coin. So they created a coin that's pegged 1-to-1 to the dollar. It's not a speculative investment. It's meant to serve as a medium of exchange. World Liberty Financial was founded by Steve Witkoff's children. So Steve Witkoff is the president's special envoy. So when we talk to Russia about the war in Ukraine, that's Steve Witkoff. He is the one going to Russia to meet with Putin and Sergei Lavrov. He is the one going to Turkey and Riyadh, meeting with our Russian counterparts. When we negotiate with Iran, directly, indirectly, it's Steve Witkoff every time, going to Switzerland, Italy, Turkey, Oman, Iran, Pakistan. He's the one going and meeting with the Qataris, meeting with the Pakistanis, meeting with the Iranians, meeting with the Saudis, with the Emiratis. He's the one meeting with all the Israelis, the Syrians, Lebanese, meeting with all these people. Steve Witkoff's top negotiator, that guy's children, founded a stablecoin company, which Trump owns a significant chunk of. As a matter of fact, Trump makes 75% of the royalties. 75% of the royalties from World Liberty go to Trump personally. And not only that, the United Arab Emirates purchased $2 billion worth of coins from World Liberty, and then they purchased a 49% stake in the company. And that equity for Trump is worth something like $57 million. Not only that, World Liberty is in talks with Pakistan to talk about cross-border payments. So the president has raked in $1 billion, well over $1 billion, one, from scamming his voters, directly scamming them, selling them something that is worthless, and also profiting off of the transaction fees from selling them something that is worthless. And then the other $700-800 million comes from World Liberty, a firm owned by the children of his top negotiator that does business with Pakistan and the UAE, which he makes royalties off of, and he makes profits from the sale of equity to foreign countries.
Yeah, how about that? Thanks a lot, Trump. Thanks a lot. And then there's some other posts here from people in the comments, but yeah, it's a great point, and that doesn't even count everything else that he's been involved with. For instance, the Qatari plane that he was given, he used taxpayer money to retrofit that and make it safe and secure for the president to be on board it and use it for Air Force One. And guess what? When he's all done being president, saying he's still alive, when he's all done being president, that's going to go in his presidential library. he's going to keep the Qatari plane because it was a gift to him, even though he used millions and millions and millions of dollars. I heard $50 million, I don't know, in retrofitting and changing this plane of American taxpayer money. He's going to keep that. Oh, but don't worry, he didn't take a paycheck for being the president. Remember? He's not getting paid for being president. Oh, he's getting paid all right. I think it makes everything Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats did, I mean, as far as insider trading and stuff, it would have had to have made them blush. I mean, really, at this point. The stuff that Trump and his sons are just as bad, are doing. It's amazing. Anyway, I just wanted to play that for you. I thought that was summed up pretty well. And of course, that's only just part of the clip. There's more. Anyway, we'll link to that, though, in the Substack post. So this one, speaking of Trump, turnout turncoats, Trump in meltdown over July 4th celebration as humiliating visual sparks vicious White House backstabbing. Yeah, how about that? No one showed up. Donald Trump was said to have been so enraged by the small turnout at his rally kicking off July 4th celebrations in Washington, D.C., that he ordered White House officials to delete images of the sparse crowd. Sounds like something that Joe Biden would do. Remember the small crowds he had? The president gave a 30-minute speech last week at the Great American State Fair, boasting about his administration's accomplishments. Heading into the nation's 250th birthday, images from Trump's talk showed a sparsely attended event, while footage captured attendees leaving in the middle of it. Trump was livid after viewing aerial photos of the crowd. He was reportedly not aware of the low attendance while on stage. I think he's not aware of a lot of things. According to CNN, the visual bothered the president so much that he immediately ordered the White House accounts to delete their posts and began lashing out on social media, claiming the crowds were packed to the brim, quote unquote. Further lies. White House officials have also begun to attack each other privately over Trump's scheduled speech on Saturday, when temperatures are expected to exceed 100 degrees, which I don't know if they were or not. I do not understand why we are doing this so late, the source said on CNN. I'm really not sure who thought that was a good idea. Daily Mail has contacted the White House for comment. I don't think they'll get one. So you can see the very few people that are there. There's a crowd here of, I don't know, a couple thousand. I can't really tell, but not many. But yeah, maybe, perhaps, it's just that people don't like being lied to, and we don't like being sent to, or being taken to war in something that we didn't want, and nonetheless, we're there anyway. And we've all learned that it truly is Israel running our country at this point. Maybe it's that people don't like, and that Trump is getting us involved in all these things. Foreign entanglements, as they say. We had the big decision by SCOTUS earlier last week about the anchor babies. Breaking, hospitals in the U.S., so hospitals in the U.S. are advertising in Latin American countries offering, quote, birth packages of up to $5,000 to foreigners to help them give birth in border states like Texas, allowing their children to be born as U.S. citizens following the new SCOTUS ruling. Yeah, that's what's going on. So you have hospitals in the U.S. advertising in Latin American countries offering birth packages of up to $5,000 so that we can bring in more foreigners. Yeah, just thought you'd like to know. Man, what a great nation we live in. Imagine if a pregnant lady broke into your house and had a baby in your living room, and then says she now has a legal right to stay in your house forever. That's how insane it is, granting birthright citizenship to illegals. But they have done that. The Supreme Court upheld it. Said, oh yeah, it's fine. We love it. Amy Coney Barrett and all the others. Again, Charlie Kirk tweet. I'm not sure when the date was on this, but imagine if a pregnant lady broke into your house and had a baby in your living room and then says she now has a legal right to stay in your house forever. That is how insane it is, granting birthright citizenship to illegals. Well said, Charlie. Yeah, and then I came across this one. Zoom in here a little. It's kind of blurry, but you get the idea. How much money each U.S. state gives to Izrul per year? Per year. Well, Texas gives $1.4 billion per year. California, $2.8 billion per year. I can't read some of these smaller ones. It's too blurry, but yeah, you get the idea. Every state, even Hawaii and Alaska, give untold tens of millions of dollars to Israel every single year. Listen, kid, giving Israel our tax money is a biblical commandment. Yeah, don't you forget it. And if you say otherwise, you are anti-Semitic. Anyway, I came across that one and thought it would be worth sharing as well. Let's see what this is. Oh, yeah. Speaking of taxpayers paying up, this is from my state. Tennessee taxpayers to pay $1.9 million settlement to a fired professor who celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination. Isn't she lovely? Tamar Shirnian during an interview with Knox News back in February. University of Tennessee has agreed to pay former assistant professor Tamar Shirnian $1.9 million, her, to settle a lawsuit after she was fired over a social media post celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. Under the settlement approved by the University of Tennessee System Board of Trustees, Shirnian will not return to her teaching position. The agreement still acquires approval from Tennessee Attorney General and the governor. My client is pleased that the parties reached a solution. Oh, I bet they are. I bet she certainly is. We believe the resolution reflects the seriousness of the issues while allowing everyone to move forward. University of Tennessee to pay $1.9 million to professor fired over Charlie Kirk comment. She said he was, he deserved to be killed or whatever. Right here. The world is better off without him in it, she wrote in a Facebook post. That got her fired, and now will get her almost $2 million. Yeah, better off without him, she said. Which, she's entitled to her opinion. I'm not saying that. But the fact that Tennessee taxpayers, through the University of Tennessee, will have to pay her almost $2 million, I'm not too happy about that, personally. All right, let's see here. Yeah, came across this one as well from Futurism. Bosses are becoming obsessed with AI, using it to make every decision, barraging their employees with nonsensical ChatGPT directives, even asking it, meaning AI, who to fire. It's like being in an abusive marriage. I'm sitting here dealing with somebody that isn't living in reality. Yeah, again, futurism.com is where this is. I don't know if any of you are experiencing this type of thing. A lawyer was working at a legal tech startup when her boss's fascination with AI began to veer from enthusiastic to downright obsessive. First, he started using OpenAI's ChatGPT to generate his Slack messages and emails. Then he mandated AI use for all employees. He called a company-wide meeting to announce that from then on, we had to discuss with the AI prior to all meetings or before communicating with him, she told Futurism, because if we didn't develop and discuss our ideas with the AI first, it was a sign that we didn't care about our jobs. Soon, her boss started making structural company decisions based solely on his conversations with ChatGPT, the attorney recalled, including asking the bot who to hire and who to fire. The boss had clearly developed some sort of mental disorder, she said. Sounds like it. Spending the whole day talking to ChatGPT and making decisions about the future of your company and the people who work there based on what it tells you seems insane. The boss was also using AI for surveillance. He purchased a handful of paid ChatGPT subscriptions for the office, said the lawyer, which allowed him to monitor our communication with the AI. He paid like 3 pro subscriptions that everyone had login access, she explained, but employees quickly realized that they were also able to view their boss's conversations with the chatbot through the paid accounts. And they started fanatically spy on his AI conversations too, especially when they realized he was asking it to make personnel decisions. So this just goes from bad to worse. Clearly, this is one cuckoo person here. But I'm wondering how much of this is happening across the board. Maybe even to a lesser degree. There's further information on this story, which is certainly concerning. But I'm guessing that it's happening in a lot of companies out there where people are just worshiping, whether it's ChatGPT or whatever, it doesn't matter. The fact is they're worshiping AI and everything that it says and hang on its every whim, almost like it can't make a mistake. Seems like it makes more mistakes than it doesn't make mistakes. All right, so this one is another Izrul news story I came across, USSA News. Babies were special targets of Israeli killings, a UN probe panel chief says. A clear pattern of attacks targeting children is evident, Justice S. Moralidar told RT India. The attacks by Israel on Gaza showed a targeted annihilation of children that should be punished, the head of a UN panel that probed the excesses told RT India. The violence unleashed by Israeli forces was unjustified and disproportionate in considerable terms. Justice Moralidar, the chair of the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, said in an exclusive interview, the excuse that Hamas could be using hospitals and schools as bases to carry out its attacks will not justify completely demolishing 97% of all Gaza's schools, he said. Man. Citing a pattern of targeted attacks on children, he said, when you shoot a 10-day-old baby breastfeeding on his mother through his head, you can by no means label such a baby as an enemy of the state of Israel and justify these kinds of attacks. Israeli quadcopters with thermal imaging cameras can clearly distinguish a child from an adult, he said. They don't care. They're just slaughtering everyone. Yeah, they are. Which reminds me, let me see if I can find this. Let me share this tab. All right. This is from dailycrow.com, but this right here is the paragraph I wanted to mention, which this is also where this meme came from too, as well as that I showed earlier. How much money each U.S. state gives to Israel every year. Well, going back to the article here about the babies being targeted, there's now a website that has archived the Gaza genocide. 64,537 videos, and it's growing. 64,537 videos, and 17,000, almost 18,000 photos so far. IDF officers laughing as little Gazan toddlers shake with their legs blown off. Israelis shooting a 4-year-old girl in the street and mocking her brother for trying to save her. This is why they bought big corporate media, social media influencers, and TikTok. They kept authentic footage from Gaza hidden from evangelical Christian America and flooded the media and social platforms with fake propaganda. But there is now a website. I will give it to you. I would advise that you don't look at it, but it is, it's insane. I just looked at a little bit of the homepage to see if it was still even up. The website is still up. Israel has not managed to take it down yet. ArchiveGenocide.com. Archive genocide.com. Yeah. Thousands of photos and videos of the IDF in Israel blowing up kids, essentially. And others. It's everything. So, man, we knew it was bad, but this is just another level of evil. It's amazing. And yet Israel gets away with everything because they are God's chosen people. Don't forget it. They're God's chosen people. Keep saying that over and over and over again, and you'll finally believe it, just like Safe and Effective. It works the same way. Christian history paved way for U.S. independence. This week, Americans celebrate a key milestone, the semi-quincentennial birthday of the Declaration of Independence. Beyond fireworks and hot dogs is something deeper, the Christian heritage behind it. So this is another Alex Newman post. He's also the guy that ran, it's the Liberty Sentinel Substack, but at the beginning of the show, we mentioned the article from The New American, which is a magazine that he is involved in as well. So same guy here. At a glance, key historical milestones over millennia paved the way for the establishment of the United States of America. These providential events were inextricably intertwined with the spread of biblical truth through Europe and the world. Without these developments, there would be no land of the free, based on the biblical notion of God-given rights. On the 250th anniversary of their country's independence, Americans must remember that the Declaration of Independence signed on July 4, 1776, which we found out earlier was only signed by one person on that actual day, was the product of thousands of years of history. The founders were indeed brilliant men, but the declaration they crafted was no mere political manifesto born of Enlightenment abstractions or secular grievances. They certainly did not invent the ideas. Rather, the Declaration was the climax of the outworking of centuries of biblical truth spreading throughout the world. This expansion shaped laws, governments, and the very conscience of the people, determined to live under God's authority rather than the whim of tyrants. Despite the absence of these facts from modern-day history books, history's in quotes, the historical record and the founders themselves are clear. From Genesis to Revelation, God shows that He is sovereign, that people are made in His likeness and image, and that He created moral laws to govern men as surely as He ordained physical laws to govern the universe. The principles embodied in the Holy Scriptures echoed throughout history and directly shaped the thinking of America's founders and the early settlers who laid the foundation for their historic declaration. The mission was both spiritual and civilizational. The goal, build a society in which the Bible's message of liberty could flourish and reach those not yet enlightened by God's word as part of the expansion of His kingdom. They saw the founding of America as another milestone in God's larger story. There are countless events, people, and ideas that paved the way for the establishment of the freest nation in history. 1,000 books could not contain them, from Noah to Abraham and Moses to Jesus Christ. All were critical. The spread of their stories and the insights God gave through them, brought light to people everywhere by way of missionaries, explorers, and evangelists. The result, liberty, peace, and prosperity expanded. So that's just the beginning here, but there's quite a bit. Christianity in the Anglo-Saxon world. There's another long section here. It is a full article is available for free on his Liberty Sentinel Substack. So we'll link to this in my Substack post. So make sure you're on that list, diamonddisc.substack.com, and we'll link to this one and all the other articles tonight that we mentioned. Congress passes Trump-backed Kids Act to enforce digital IDs to use the internet. These bills would fundamentally change the internet as we know it. This would functionally end the possibility of surfing the internet anonymously while supercharging Trump's efforts to criminalize left-wing opposition groups in the U.S. So, you get behind your guy, whoever your guy in the White House happens to be, and you're like, do what you can to stop the other side, right versus left, left versus right, whatever. And then it turns around and bites you when the other the other party gets into power. Because it's all the same uniparty, isn't it? U.S. House of Representatives on Monday night, June 29th, passed a controversial bill that would fundamentally change how Americans will be able to access and use the internet. Like we need this. A piece of legislation that was endorsed by the Trump White House. The Kids Internet and Digital Safety Act, KIDS Act, H.R. 7757, was passed with a vote of 267 to 117 with 47 abstentions. So, yes, of course it passed, because who wants to vote against kids, for Pete's sake? Because if you vote against kids, you can't get elected again, right? Kids have nothing to do with this. It's all about total tyrannical control. The KIDS Act is an omnibus package that bundles together multiple bills, including the COSA, Kids Online Safety Act, the Screen Act, the Safe Bots Act, COPA or COPA 2.0, the Spy Kids Act, the most controversial of those being COSA, Kids Online Safety Act. Summary of the omnibus bill is right here. It's basically, we're all going to have IDs to get online. The KIDS Act is something the Trump administration has been working to get passed as part of its ambitions to override state AI laws, first reported by Axios in early June. But in an attempt to get something done, the administration is willing to exchange that for ID verification and use most parts of the internet via the bills contained in the KIDS Act. The Wine Press, which is the Substack, has reported on the various attempts by the Trump administration to override state sovereign laws to allow the federal government to allow big tech and AI startups an easier pathway to build infrastructure. Senator Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee, was commissioned to head the talks. Senator Blackburn is spearheading the negotiation with the White House to finalize legislative text of an AI preemption package that includes protections for kids, creators, and communities through the Senate version of COSA, the No Fakes Act, and age verification requirements. This entire thing is a huge boondoggle, isn't it? The White House continues to proactively engage across government and industry, White House official vaguely said at the time, but as the administration struggled to get sweeping federal AI deregulation established, the Trump White House is now pushing for the KIDS Act to be accepted. But doing so would fundamentally change the internet and how Americans use it forever, should the latest omnibus now pass in the Senate and then be signed by Trump. You think it will pass? They all want this, of course. And the people don't want this. The people don't want to be limited and have to show ID just to use the internet, because we all use it now. Now they're slowly starting to take it away so that, the digital ID, the next step in the Mark of the Beast system, will be something that we all have to take part in, because if you don't, you can't get online. And therefore you can't make, a decent wage. Whatever your job is, chances are it involves being online. Trump quietly declares national emergency to secure adequate supply of phosphate fertilizer as farmers struggle with shortages and high prices. I, Donald J. Trump, do hereby declare an emergency to exist with respect to the threats to the availability of sufficient supplies of fertilizers to meet expected agricultural demand. Why do you suppose it was quietly declared, the national emergency? That would be because it was his fault that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and his fault then that there's a problem getting fertilizers. Nice, huh? So he creates the problem, and now he has to declare a national emergency to fix it, which may be too late. Earlier this week, Trump, on Monday, June 29th, made a quiet proclamation declaring a national emergency and authorization temporary trade restrictions on Morocco to gain access to more phosphate fertilizers as farmers struggle to secure necessary supply. As a result of higher prices in the Strait of Hormuz closure, American farmers have struggled to secure necessary fertilizer this season. As the Wine Press reported back in April, a Farm Bureau revealed farmers that 70% of farmers surveyed could not afford all fertilizer needed. Everybody seems to agree that we're eating the 2025 crops at this point. That's what's on the store shelves. And 2026 crops may not exist, or at least not very much of it. Fertilizer pre-booking rates varied significantly by region, with just 19% of southern producers reporting fertilizer purchases secured ahead of the season, compared to 30% in the Northeast, 31% in the West, 67% in the Midwest, reflecting differences in planting decision timelines and exposure to recent price increases. So everything's going up in price, and the fertilizer is not really available. Farmers and farm owners report ever worsening financial conditions. According to the survey, 94% of the respondents reported their financial situation has worsened or remained the same since last year. Only 6% reported improvement. Yeah, and that's probably the people that are consolidating or getting bought. Man. Well, anyway, in case you didn't know, yeah, Trump quietly declares national emergency on a problem that he created. Long warned about global depopulation scheme now lurching into overdrive. Wars, famine, and the mass poisoning of humanity facilitated by corrupt public-private partnerships is going to trigger a mass die-off not seen since World War II. He says, I've been warning for years that wars, vaccines, and corruption of our food chain and engineered famine were being managed by globalist technocratic elites for the purpose of depopulation. I've cited arch technocrats like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates to show that the motive is clear. They want far fewer people on the planet. They are Malthusian in their belief. And the Earth's resources are finite and must be strategically redirected away from the masses in such a way that results in a much smaller population. Not only are they worried about scarce resources, but with the rise of artificial intelligence invading one industry after another, the need for worker bees is plummeting at an accelerated rate, which we're finding out that may not necessarily be true, but we've talked about that already. The Georgia Guidestones Monument, erected in rural North Georgia in 1980, also highlighted the global depopulation agenda before they were mysteriously destroyed on July 6th, 2022. Wow, we're coming up on the anniversary of that tomorrow. 4 years. Law enforcement never fully investigated the attack, who fomented it, and why, as the crime scene was quickly bulldozed within hours, removing all evidence. It was interesting to me that the Guidestones, with their incriminating globalist agenda for a vastly smaller global population spelled out in unmistakable terms, were destroyed just as people were waking up to the mass psyop known as COVID-19. Depopulation is key to understanding everything going on in the world today at the geopolitical level. This trend is facilitated not only by endless wars, but through engineered famine. It's a historical fact that wars are almost always followed by famine. And you can see that trend taking shape in the world today. But it's not only through wars that the Malthusians will call the herd. Christian Westbrook, author of the Unshadowed blog, posted an article earlier this week on Trump's June 25th executive order mandating regenerative farming. The executive order gives lip service to HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy's Make America Healthy Again agenda while proceeding to undermine it with the UN climate emphasis on biofuels and carbon credits. The executive order mentions MAHA, yet the flagship action taken the same day by the USDA, the regenerative feedstock rule, funnels those regenerative, quote-unquote, results explicitly into biofuels. Westbrook notes that farmers using prescribed methods are rewarded with lower carbon intensity scores. How about that? He writes, this is carbon market infrastructure wearing a regenerative mask, not a program to grow healthier food for American tables. He cites language in Trump's executive order that reflects the United Nations World Economic Forum globalist agenda, with the admonition to watch what they do, not what they say. What they are doing is taking over food production while screaming about a food crisis and giving lip service to climate resilience and soil health. Yeah, which of course they do not care about. only for themselves. Anyway, that is a pretty interesting piece here on Leo Hohmann's Substack, which again we'll have linked in my Substack post that I send out probably on Tuesday. Michael Snyder's Substack. We've got several Substacks here in a row. 10 very strange things that occurred on the 4th of July this year. Let's see what they were. Since the news cycle was really slow going into the holiday, I didn't expect that much would happen, but I was wrong. This is from Michael Snyder. The following are 10 very strange things that occurred on the 4th of July this year. Let me know if you guys have heard about or know any of these things. Number 1, in the middle of the Independence Day celebrations in New York, the skies above the city suddenly turned blood red. A dramatic red glow illuminated the New York City skyline during the 250th anniversary celebrations, leaving spectators amazed and sparking widespread discussion online. While many describe the scene as eerie or symbolic, there is no verified evidence linking the unusual sky color to any supernatural event or bad omen. At first, I had a difficult time believing that this was true, so I asked Google, and I was assured that this actually happened. Apparently, the blood red color was caused by the fireworks display. Like that. There's a picture here. The dramatic red or blood red sky was the result of the intense 50th annual Macy's fireworks display, which involved approximately 85,000 shells launching all over the city. Some social media users captured video footage of the phenomenon. It was certainly very creepy. Isn't that weird? Seeing the blood red sky instantly reminded me of the fact that abortion was legalized in New York on April 11th, 1970. Since that time, more than 67 million American babies have been aborted. 67 million. That's the number we know about. And starting on July 5th, Planned Parenthood will regain access to hundreds of millions in Medicaid funding. So it all comes back. And we have that sky. So there's more about that a little bit. Number 2, strangest thing that happened. The fireworks in New York City also caused the Brooklyn Bridge to catch fire. Brooklyn Bridge erupted in flames during the Macy's fireworks extravaganza on Saturday. Yeah, I knew about that actually. Fire got so large that at one point some onlookers were concerned that the entire bridge could potentially burn down. It's one of the most famous bridges in the entire country. So yeah, that did happen. They did obviously get the fire put out. Number 3, strange thing that happened on top of everything else. One photographer actually captured a rainbow, a bolt of lightning, and the Statue of Liberty in a single photo. Look at there. There it is. Statue of Liberty, a rainbow, and a bolt of lightning. Isn't that weird? And it's not AI, apparently. Never seen anything quite like it. So these are all New York related so far. Number 4, a mega heat dome baked the eastern half of the nation on the 4th, and a series of massive thunderstorms ripped through the Midwest. Yeah, we had the heat dome above us. That was quite the experience. Of course, it's been, it's pretty hot normally in July around here, but funny that they're calling it a heat dome, which of course is artificially made, if you do any research on that kind of stuff at all, as far as geoengineering goes. As a result of the bad weather, Independence Day celebrations had to either be canceled or moved up in a number of cities. We had good weather here. We did get rain yesterday, or we got rain. I don't think we did yesterday. On the 3rd, we were supposed to go to fireworks on the 3rd with some family and friends, and we did end up doing that, and they did have the fireworks starting at about 10:30 at night. It had rained earlier that day, but it wasn't enough to cancel the festivities, and in fact, it was totally fine, and it was awesome, and it was quite beautiful, actually. Just in a small town, not too far from where we live. But yeah, it was really neat, and had a good time. So getting back to the stranger things that have happened here. 10 very strange things that occurred on the 4th. This is number 5. In Washington, D.C., extremely stormy weather greatly disrupted the Freedom 250, celebration in the president's address was delayed for approximately 2 hours. I don't think that's all that strange. Just because the weather these days are it's a bit unpredictable. What else we have? Number 6, in Southern California, an absolutely shocking accident following a game between Angel City and the Orlando Pride resulted in fireworks being fired directly into the stands at the stadium in Los Angeles. Wow. I actually didn't know about that. Says 4th of July weekend celebration turned into a fiery nightmare when fireworks went screaming into the stands at the BMO Stadium in Los Angeles. Wow. I don't know. There's probably video, I'm sure, somewhere. The number 7 strangest thing here, in Chicago, Delta flight was actually hit by fireworks on Sunday evening. Number 8, in the town of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, we witnessed a historic fireworks accident. The huge fire that consumed a fireworks stand caused a chain reaction of explosions that lit up the night sky for miles. Wow. Chain reaction, man. Number 9, needless to say, there was quite a bit of violence in our major cities on the 4th. In just one incident in New York, there were at least 8 different shooting victims. Wow. That was number 9. Number 10 here, the violence on the West Coast was even worse. In Southern California, police on horseback were deployed to deal with the vast crowd of rioters and looters. Man. Welcome to California. Newport Beach, I guess, was the worst. Independence Day revelers poured into Orange County, choking traffic and triggering a police response as disorder spread near the pier. Authorities ultimately shut down businesses from the Newport Pier to Pacific Coast Highway as officers moved in to restore order. Anyway, that's some of the strangest things that have happened, according to Michael Snyder's post. Thought that was pretty wild. This picture is really amazing, huh? So let's continue on with some info from Revelation1823.net. So let's take a look at that and see where we left off. I think I know where we left off. So yeah, if you want to follow along, this is a really good site. Revelation1823.net. My good friend Brian put this site together, and it's really a wealth of information, connecting a lot of dots with regard to Revelation, the book of Revelation, and the whole COVID thing, and Mark of the Beast and everything, which is right up my alley because it's stuff that we've been talking about for many, many years at this point on this channel, these channels. The purpose of this book, we read through that last time. I think that's where I left off. Let me see here. Let me double check. Yeah, let's start with that. The purpose of this book, which is actually a website, but note that it is downloadable PDFs that you can grab, and they're available on this website. To expose the sorcery of Revelation 18:23, to understand how it will be used in the coming digital totalitarian slave race, Mark of the Beast, and to comprehend why most will never make the distinction. That is the purpose of this book or website. The ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the dedicated communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction, true and false, no longer exists. It's a quote from Hannah Arendt, a historian philosopher from 1906 through 1975. But how can we be sure that we've made the correct distinction? Evidence, evidence, evidence. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. John Adams, second president of the U.S. from 1797 to 1801. Case in point, on page 2 of newsmedical.net told us the result of the COVID-19 vax was fewer heart attacks, according to their study in 2023. Really? No one bothered to look at the verifiable evidence from VAERS the government reporting agency for adverse events, to see a nearly 16,000% increase in 2021. No one? Question mark. Well, I would just add that obviously people were looking at that. It's just that the people that were in charge of things pretty easily ignored it because it didn't fit their narrative. Welcome to the sorcery of Revelation 18:23, where blatant lies and cover-up are run-of-the-mill. Thus, you will be given evidence from scientists, biologists, doctors, peer-reviewed papers, news journals, patent proofs, charts, and much more in a digestible, comprehensive format that builds one chapter or layer on top of the other, which is what we're doing with reading through this website little by little. And let's face it, this is a Luciferian puzzle, decades in the making, that would boggle anyone's mind. Sadly, 5.5 billion have taken the C19 sorcerer's serum. We know what that is. Because they didn't make the correct distinction between fact and fiction. 5.5 billion people. And I would add that not everybody got the same thing. That's kind of the key, and something that pretty much everybody ignores. They didn't all take the exact same thing. How the book works in simple terms: navigating the evidence. The fact that an opinion has been widely held is no evidence whatever that it is not utterly absurd. That is a quote from Bertrand Russell. Navigating the evidence. Please notice the 4 distinct quadrants of the crime scene board that we're seeing here. Now, look at the detective in the middle. He's saying me, and think for a minute. Why would someone spend 6 years of their life, meaning Brian that put this together, thousands of hours and thousands of dollars to bring you this evidence in a digestible format? Because that is what watchmen do. They fight for your soul. Which I might add, that's the reason that we're reading through all this. And let's be clear, we are in a battle for the souls of humanity, and those who endure to the end and overcome will be those who are found worthy. How the book works. The book is divided into 4 different sections. Each section has multiple individual chapters. Each chapter can be downloaded as a PDF or read online. Don't want to read everything? Then scan the 4 different sections by using the navigation links located at the top of the website header for an overview, and choose the chapter you desire. Each button on the drop-down menu will guide you to a picture with a brief description of the chapter and reading time. Larger sections will have a table of contents. And at the end of each prologue, you will be invited to click here to proceed to the section. Yeah, word of warning, each section is designed to build upon the last. Therefore, do not go to quantum physics, transhumanism, before basic math, meaning engineered viruses. This warning applies primarily to the COVID-19 and the eschatology of the Mark of the Beast sections. Why I jump around? Not only to keep interest, but to slowly weave a complex tapestry that only comes into focus when viewed through the lens of history. Brief description of each section. Section 1, history of vaccines. So let's look at this graphic first. CDC schedule, 1983, it was 10 vaccines. When I was growing up, it was even less than that. So in 1983, it was 10 vaccines. In 2013, it was up to 32 vaccines. 2018, it was 74 vaccines. And then comparing that to the autism rates, let's just look at this. In 1983, when it was 10 vaccines, it was 1 in 10,000 had autism. In 2013, when it was up to 32 vaccines, then autism rate jumped to 1 in 88. In 2018, when it was 74 vaccines, then autism jumped to 1 in 36. Yeah, I think now they're saying it's, in single digits or something now. I don't know. Pretty much every kid has autism now. I wonder why. It has nothing to do with the vaccine schedule. It can't possibly, because they're safe and effective. Don't forget. I'm just adding it. To believe without evidence and demonstration is an act of ignorance and folly. Socrates said that. RFK Jr., not one childhood vaccine was pre-tested in a long-term placebo-controlled trial. Did you get that? Not one childhood vaccine of the 72 that were recommended in the U.S. has ever been subjected to a long-term, pre-licensed, placebo-controlled safety trial. They can't do that. They cannot do that because that would prove that they only harm. Vaccines only harm. Does that mean the entire vaccine industry is based on lies and corruption? Yes. Why else would the vast majority of all new medicines get double-blinded studies, but none for vaccines? Why would the company that make them have zero liability for the most part? And why does the U.S. vaccinate 2 to 3 times more than other countries? To create death and destruction. Need evidence? ? Then read the study that was published in the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA, on July 7th, 2025, which stated, American children are in worse health than those growing up in other developed countries. Section 1 is crucial for setting the foundation of the entire book. The chapters are small and start at the beginning of the industry. Chapter 1 begins with the rod of Asclepius. Chapter 2 shows the historical opposition and moral outrage from the 17th and 18th century pastors. Yeah, meaning pastors that were against vaccines is what that means. Chapter 3 displays the utter contempt, criticism, and resistance of vaccines, from doctors past to present. Chapter 4 presents vaccine content and historical data. Chapter 5 and 6 discuss the moral implications of aborted fetal cells used in the vaccine industry through the lens of God's Word. Chapter 7 gives evidence for the real cause of polio. Chapter 8 gives proof of the vaccine-induced 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. Let's see here. I'll read this one more section here. Section 2, COVID-19 mRNA breakdown. Understanding the mRNA computer-generated synthetic chimeric sequence, a.k.a. COVID-19 vaccine. For the life, soul, nefesh, of the flesh is in the blood. Leviticus 17:11. Which gives a whole new meaning to have you sold your soul, meaning blood, to the devil. And this section will break down why the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that cDNA, a byproduct of the mRNA computer-generated synthetic code, is artificial life. Please note the material is written in an easy format, meaning there are random headlines, commentaries in the headlines, and some pretty deep science. That being said, on many of the science articles, there is a simple decode to help grasp the content in a semi-simplified format. Chapter 1, Pandemic Proof, shows what they have planned for the future virus-wise. Chapter 2, the Engineered Virus section, breaks down the virus's genetic makeup. Chapter 3 shows the real agenda of why they introduced the COVID-19 vax and its effects. Chapter 4 reveals the chimeric days of Noah, meaning the recombinant DNA technology used in the C19 mRNA, which combines animal and human cells, creating a new species, a hybrid. The genetic manipulation of humanity and how this ties into Scripture. Chapter 5 exposes how DNA is a software of life. Put simply, change the software and you change the species, which is exactly what mRNA software does. Chapter 6, the bioweapon, lists the exact mechanisms of death and how they work, and why Dr. Ryan Cole would describe it as an experimental biological gene therapy, DNA altering, immune modulatory injection, fake vaccine, clot shot, needle rape. Chapter 7 unveils the real reason mRNA technology was introduced, the transhumanist agenda. The chapter starts with the spiritual origins and then moves to the nanotechnology in the C19 mRNA. So we'll leave off here with section 3 and start with that next week. Understanding the beast system of technology. But of course you can and are invited to read ahead if you want to. Feel free to look up this website, Revelation 1823, Revelation1823.net. So anyway, yeah, it's there's a lot here. We're actually reaching the bottom of the homepage. So once we get through that, then we'll jump off into some of these other sections that he's outlaid for us here, and look forward to doing that. Anyway, yeah, again, have a look at that site if you want to read further into some of these things and share it with friends and family. It's a really good thing to do. All right. Let's get back to our last of the Substack posts here. Elon Musk said, "We are summoning the demon. What if he wasn't joking?" This is on Wise Wolf, the Wise Wolf Substack. Interesting little animation here. Ye shall be as gods. Wow. The government paid psychics for 2 decades. The Nazis went to Tibet looking for magic. And Silicon Valley is building city-sized AI data centers named after demons. Sure, it's just a coincidence. Okay, he's talking about 1988 Japanese film called Akira. If you never saw it, here is all you need to know. World War III happens, governments collapse, and in the ruins, the secret military program breeds genetically engineered psychic children. One of whom becomes so powerful that the film stops treating him like a character and starts treating him like a messiah. His name is Akira. And the people of ruined Neo-Tokyo literally worship him. So let's see here. It says, I grew up, started reading declassified documents for a living, and then the fuzzy VHS tape started looking less like fiction and more like a leak. Because here's a partial inventory of what we are about to cover, all of it real. Your tax dollars paid military psychics to sit in a room at Fort Meade and spy on the Soviets with their minds for 20 years. The Nazis, the most technologically advanced regime of their era, ran an official government bureau devoted to ancient gods and black magic, and sent an SS expedition to Tibet to find the source of it. I remember hearing about that. The machines you use every day are crawling with occult fingerprints from the daemons, D-A-E-M-O-N-S's, running your computer right now. Their actual technical name, daemons, or demons if you want to pronounce it that way, to the first Apple ever sold, priced at $666.66. Yeah, we've all seen those memes and pictures. And at this very moment, the richest men alive are building machines the size of cities, naming them after demons and telling us with straight faces that these machines will birth something godlike. So that feeling of safety you had at 13 watching the psychic children of Neo-Tokyo and knowing it was all make-believe, hold on to it as long as you can, because we are going to take a walk together, and every stop on this walk is darker than the last. It starts in the most boring place imaginable, a government office building in Maryland. Yeah, and then it gets into the men who stared at coordinates instead of goats, I guess. Talking MK Ultra, the naval intelligence officer who died on his porch. His name was Milton William Cooper. Never heard of him. That is partly by design. I'm sure many of you guys have. Cooper was a Navy veteran who claimed that during his service in naval intelligence, he was shown classified material describing government research programs the public was never meant to know existed. Programs that made Stargate look like a bake sale. He put what he knew, what he suspected, into a 1991 book called Behold a Pale Horse, which became one of the most read underground books in America. Then he spent a decade on shortwave radio, night after night, mapping what he described as a hidden architecture of secret programs, secret societies, and secret sciences operating comfortably behind the government you vote for. There's the picture, the cover of the book, Behold a Pale Horse. But grade the man on his hits, Cooper was talking about government psychic research, mass surveillance, and intelligence manipulation of the American public years before documents surfaced proving those categories of things were real. In June 2001, he told his listeners a major attack was coming and that it would be pinned on Osama bin Laden. 3 months later, it happened. That November, Cooper was shot dead by a sheriff's deputy on his own property in Arizona during an attempted arrest over a local charge. He had told his audience for years that he would die exactly that way. Now here's the part Cooper's message that matters for our walk. He insisted that the weird research was not an American invention. The United States, he said, inherited it, absorbed it, took possession of it the way a victor takes possession of anything else as the spoils of war. And if you want to know where the American programs got their inheritance from, you have to visit the regime that did it all of this first and did it bigger. And it did it with a body count. Put your coat on. This next step is cold. Himmler sent scientists to Tibet. Talking about getting into Nazi Germany here. So it looks like this article is pretty intense. Fallen Angel Research Hypothesis with Gonzo Shimura. And your computer runs on Damon's. Yep. And it goes on. This is a long post. This is on the Wise Wolf on their Substack, which is always good. Some very interesting things on there to take a look at. And then one more Substack post from Insight to Insight. Birthright Citizenship is a globalist GOP plot, Part 1, Stealing America. It didn't just happen. It's part of an 80-year-old post-World War II plot between the Grand Old Party and the global economic establishment. Most Americans think that they know what happened this week. The Supreme Court ruled on birthright citizenship. The cable news panels screamed at each other for 72 hours. Republicans blamed Democrats. Democrats blamed Republicans. And by next week, everyone will have moved on to the next outrage. That's a great point, isn't it? That's because almost everyone is arguing over the wrong question. The real story isn't about immigration. It isn't even about citizenship. It's about something much larger that almost nobody is talking about, and it has nothing to do with domestic policy. What happened this week wasn't merely a court decision. It was another step in redefining what America actually is. Yeah, we all got a good, hard look at the limits of executive power this week when the Supreme Court struck down the executive order from Trump declaring an end to birthright citizenship. The power-sharing agreement under which the global syndicate has run the U.S. like a penal colony since the end of World War II doesn't allow for any broad sweeping changes to America's system of government, and that change was not authorized. Presidents come and go, and with relative freedom, presidents can alter America's political landscape 5 or 6 degrees to the left or right before handing power to their replacement. When those changes will be undone as America sits on the edge of our seats looking at a play whose end has already been written. That's my creative way of saying the president's power is limited by the fail-safe measure that masquerades as checks and balances. Americans spend an inordinate amount of time and energy ensuring that our guy is in the Oval Office, but our guy's pen strokes can be blotted out by the next guy. And whatever changes are made by executive fiat can be unmade in short order, if not by the other party when the powers and principalities give them their turn to pretend to be in control, then by the U.S. Congress or the Supreme Court. The former is controlled by special interests from international cartel that's ruled the world since the 1950s, and the latter is a court occupied by 4 women and 5 men whose lifetime appointments were approved and consented to by the same Manchurian Congress controlled from across the ocean. Only on occasion does it somehow, against the odds, do the right thing. Today is not one of those occasions. No kidding. Anyway, it gets into it a little deeper here. The real history of birthright citizenship. So again, free post available on Insight to Insight on Substack, which we'll link to in my Substack post. So make sure you're on there. And as usual, it looks like the podcast is a paid thing to access. So if you're a paid subscriber, I guess you could access the podcast, but the full article is there if you care to read about that. All right, a little doom break for the folks out there. This is weird. It says, I kind of remember this. It says, this kaleidoscope U.S. government cartoon for the 1976 bicentennial is the most 70s thing ever. Don't ever try to tell me that the CIA wasn't behind psychedelics after seeing this video commissioned by our government. This cartoon short created for the bicentennial in 1976 is the most 70s thing I have ever seen in my whole life. It's like if Schoolhouse Rock animators were given acid and told to make a Grateful Dead music video. It is pretty wild. Unfortunately, though, I can play it for you, but I can't really play it with audio. And that's kind of the best part, is, in my opinion, is the 70s music that goes along with it. Let me play it, though. You will get the idea of how crazy it is as far as the just the way it looks. It says, created by animator Vincent Collins and produced by the United States Information Agency. Get a load of that. The United States Information Agency. The film goes on a kaleidoscopic journey through iconic American symbols. And make sure you're on the Substack, because I will link directly to this so you can watch it with the sound. I can't play it with the music because it will possibly flag or end my live stream, which I don't want to do at this moment. But you can see how psychedelic it is, for sure. He says, I'll be honest, that might just be the most patriotic drug trip anyone has ever witnessed. Yeah, it is better with music, for sure. But you get the idea. I think this is kind of long, too. It's under 3 minutes. I guess we'll keep watching it. Makes how we'll, have to wait on the music part of it. And some of you guys may have already seen this before. I don't know. I don't really, as I'm watching this, I don't really remember this. It does kind of remind me of Schoolhouse Rock, though. Did you guys like that show when you were kids? If you were around then, many of you, maybe you weren't. Oh, look, it's got the all-seeing eye and the pyramid. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, there's no way that the CIA wasn't involved in this at all. Not at all. Total kookiness. Yeah. I mean, this would have taken quite some time to do all this, because they were doing all this stuff by hand. There were no computers being used for this stuff. Wow, it's outputting hot dogs and baseballs and everything else. This is pretty crazy. It's almost done, though. There's the stars upon stars upon stars. We got the recycle arrows. It's just, that looks like the kind of like the Wonder Woman logo or something. Yeah, Bicentennial by Vincent Collins. 1976. Well, that's the end. So yeah, again, we'll make sure that you have a link to this with the music, and we can play that later. All right, and then let's see here. Children's Health Defense. Breaking. Mother of twins who died 8 days after vaccinations charged with murder. So I saw this headline and I'm like, okay, well, what happened here? Police in Payette, Idaho, arrested Andrea Shaw on Tuesday afternoon, more than a year after her two children, fraternal twins, Dallas and Tyson, were found dead at their home on May 1st, 2025, 8 days after receiving their 18-month vaccines. Police charged Shaw with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Shaw said doctors ignored her when she warned that the twins' father had previously experienced a bad reaction to a flu vaccine. So there they are here, happy as can be. A 23-year-old mother charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of her twin toddlers was set to be arraigned later today after an Idaho grand jury indicted her late Monday. And here's a link to the press release for that on Facebook. Police arrested Andrea Shaw on Tuesday, more than a year after her 2 children were found dead at their home, 8 days after receiving their 18-month vaccines. Payette Police Department said the arrest follows a lengthy and thorough investigation and said it would have no further comment regarding evidence in the case. Future information will be presented through the judicial process. Shaw alleges that her twins' deaths were caused by the vaccines that they received at a routine doctor's appointment. Nurse Wolbrecht, an advocate for people injured by vaccines who had been supporting the Shaws, told this website, The Defender, she was shocked and heartbroken to learn of Shaw's arrest. Over the past year, This is a quote. Over the past year, I have had the privilege of walking alongside Andrea and her family after the unimaginable loss of her twin babies, the nurse here says. I have witnessed a mother's profound grief, unwavering love for her children, and determination to seek answers. Andrea gave birth to a new baby born 3 weeks prematurely on June 25th. Shaw's attorney told local news station KTVB7 her husband is caring for the newborn while she is incarcerated. So she has a brand new baby that was just born last month. Shaw told physician of family history of adverse vaccine reaction. The details of Shaw's twin story are laid out in the court documents and are part of a lawsuit against the AAP. Andrea and her husband, Nathaniel, also shared their story with Children's Health Defense. According to Andrea, she and her mother-in-law said that they warned the twins' pediatrician that there was a family history of adverse reactions to the flu shot. However, the pediatrician dismissed these concerns. Nurses administered the flu vaccine along with Hep A and DTaP shots on April 23rd, 2025. The twins had previously received most routine childhood vaccinations, including the 1-year shots. Within hours, Andrea said the toddlers became lethargic and ill. The next morning, their lips were blue and struggled to move. Andrea took the twins to the emergency room, and the doctor told the doctor that they had received three vaccines the day before. The treating physician in the emergency room diagnosed them as suffering from post-immunization reaction initial encounter. So I guess the ER physician was correct here. The babies remained symptomatic over the days that followed. A week later, in the morning of May 1st, she found both children unresponsive. Wow. They said that it wasn't medical and that they figured asphyxiation and that I had supposedly had a postpartum overwhelming blackout and done it to my children. I see. So they're basically framing this woman and accusing her of killing her kids when it was the doctors who instituted and ignored the fact that they had other vaccine reactions in their family. Wow. Medical industry ignores vaccines as possible cause of SIDS. Yeah, that's for sure true. So that is really sad. Anyway, it looks like Idaho is out to get this couple, this woman in particular, and has already incarcerated her. So that'll be interesting to see what happens and if she's, somehow able to get out of this. 5-year prison term, this says. She pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and child neglect. She was ordered to serve 3 years of probation to avoid a 5-year prison term. Some charges have also been brought against the parents in the deaths of infants sleeping with these boppy pillows. Also been several cases of parents charged for sleeping in the same bed as their child. Yeah, so these are all different things that parents have been accused of doing when, in fact, oftentimes it is the reaction to the vaccines that have caused the death of the little ones. So that is crazy. Anyway, that was a really sad story here. But if I hear anything further on this story, I'll certainly let you guys know. But man, that is something. They lose their kids, and now she's going to be in jail. Wow. Is your pastor a secret Israeli agent? I don't know how secret they are. They're kind of like proud of it almost. Maybe not about being an agent, but secretly on Israel's side at least. Or maybe not so secretly. Israel is spying on millions of Christian Americans in their churches. We've got one of the worst ones right here, Pastor Hagee. Alan McLeod at Mint Press News has published an excellent report on a document recently published by the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, on how American pastors are working with Israel to spy on the members of their churches. And then he says, this is from the guy that writes articles on Health Impact News and Vaccine Impact. He published a similar story earlier. Largest Christian geofencing in U.S. history. Your pastor and church are being paid by the Israeli government to track you and your views on Israel. I think we covered that back when he put that out before. Farah docs, Israel is spying on millions of Christian Americans in their churches. Of course they are. If you're a Christian living in the western United States, you almost certainly have been targeted with pro-Israel, anti-Palestine propaganda paid for directly by the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. Your searches, location, and internet activity is being monitored by Israel, and your algorithms and search results across multiple platforms are being manipulated by Israeli government in what is its American partner calls the largest geofencing and targeted Christian digital campaign ever. Amid a massive drop in support from the Christian community, Israel is spending millions of dollars to target individuals entering churches or Christian colleges with ads and paying pastors across the country to promote propaganda and false anti-Palestinian narratives every Sunday. Documents filed with the United States, FARA, show. Foreign Agents Registration Act. Man. 86-page disclosure reveals that Israel is recruiting Hollywood celebrities and sports stars to promote the country, meaning Israel, while also manipulating Christian social media feeds, and they are doing it by spying on you through your phone. Mint Press explores the explosive story and largely ignored by the corporate media. Propaganda Storm, looking to see if TPUSA is mentioned here at all. Anyway, so there's the how it works exactly kind of thing. High-tech targeting is listed here and explained a little bit. Is your pastor a secret Israeli agent? The operation admits that it has digitally targeting every large church in 4 western states. Includes 219 in California, 219 churches in California, 39 in Arizona, 32 in Colorado, and 14 in Nevada. Some of these mega churches boast congregations of up to 45,000 people. I'm surprised they're not targeting more in the South because, I know it's probably not churches that size, but there are just so many churches here. Just in Nashville alone, you could, if you were walking downtown, there's a church on every corner almost. It's crazy how many churches there are. And rather large ones around Nashville for sure. So I'm sure they're also being targeted. It may just not be quite as much somehow as these Western USA churches are. Celebrity Agents of Israel. So, anyway, quite a few details here. Israel's war on Christians in West Asia. American Christians losing faith in Israel. That would be because they're murdering everyone. Oh, here's some of the places of worship listed as targeted in the disclosure. I think we looked at this before. Maybe a few shows back. Quite a few shows back. Yeah, because there's a lot in Texas, California, Colorado. It just goes on and on and on. Well, they're listed here alphabetically. So I guess if you live out there, you might want to take a look at this if you're going to any of these churches, because chances are you're being targeted. Which, of course, that's the way it works with Israel. That's the way it works. We know that. All right. Let's see here. GeoWatch for July 4th. It's called Engineering Scorching Heat. And we just put out a 90-second alert on that as well earlier today. And that's embedded here. And this video here that's kind of tall on the page is a 90-second video. It's actually a little less than that, I think. And then this one right here that's embedded is the full show, the full hour-long, almost hour-long show from Dane Wigington. Mr. Dane, as I call him. Extreme heat scorches July 4th celebrations. America 250 events are being canceled as heat dome grips U.S. Record heat disrupts America's 250th. And earlier this week, from the Weather Channel, this headline, record cold temps, mountain snow for western states. Does this combination make any sense? ? Extreme scorching, record heat, and record cold with up to 3 feet of snow during the same week, in all within the U.S. borders. The climate engineers are beyond desperate, and they are completely out of control. Latest installment of Global Alert News is embedded right there. Yeah, and then also make sure if you haven't seen the dimming, it's also embedded here too. The Dimming is a really well done movie, all about exposing the climate engineering cover-up. So that's embedded there as well. It's on pretty much all these post pages that Mr. Dane puts up on the site. So again, geoengineeringwatch.org. And then let's have a look at the weather coming up, or at least the temperatures, scheduled weather, scheduled temperatures, valid July 11th through the 15th. So it looks like there's more heat above normal for the most part across the whole U.S. except for Alaska. So that's pretty wild, huh? Again, July 11th through the 15th. It's going to be plenty warm out west. Looks like you guys won't miss it this time. I think you've had maybe a little bit cooler temps, but it's going to jump right back up there with the huge target out here in the west as well. Wyoming and Colorado and Utah and Idaho and the Dakotas and Montana in particular, those places are going to be apparently real hot. Or at least, compared to normal. But I don't think normal exists anymore. I don't know about you guys. Okay, Linktree. So here's our Linktree for the Diamond Report. I mention this pretty much every week, or try to. This is where you can go to get to all things related to this show. And the first three here are ways you can help contribute to what I'm doing. If you enjoy the show and can support financially, that would be a very, very welcome thing. Got a few people that have stepped up and continue to step up month after month and help me pay the bills. So thank you guys for doing that. The few of you that know who you are, I think I mistakenly said there were 8 or 9 people on Substack paying. No, there's 6. There's 6 people on Substack that are contributing, and on Subscribestar we have 5. So 11 people. The old number 11. And then occasionally, random folks that jump in and contribute a little bit on Buy Me a Coffee as well. And that is also available. Let me refresh that page here. Buy Me a Coffee, and the link is down at the bottom down there, buymeacoffee.com. So those are options. Those are ways you can help support what I'm doing, and I certainly appreciate that. And then MasterPeace is another option here. This is something that I've had a few people ask about. Nanoparticle detoxification support. From what I can tell, it's a really good product. I'm an affiliate on there, so there's a link to that particular product if you want to read more about it and get there from Linktree. And then everything else on here is just the different platforms that I'm on, including the live streaming platforms that I use on Sunday nights, and then also the places that the show ends up Monday or Tuesday of the same week. So we do the live show on Sunday night, and then I do a edit where I kind of break down and break out some of the stuff that don't really need to be there on the final show. I do that edit on Monday, and then by Monday night I usually publish the podcast, which is the audio-only version. That particular thing ends up on Apple Music and Spotify. That's usually done by late Monday night, and then at some point Tuesday, generally, I will publish the finalized video back to all the other platforms, like the 2 YouTube channels, Take It to the Lord in Prayer, and Diamond Disc, and then also Rumble, BitChute, Brighteon, and Facebook. Those are all linked right here. And then I cross-promote and put links to, going back to the YouTube videos and stuff like that on Telegram, Minds, Gab, MeWe, Brighteon Social, Getter, and Parler. Those are all linked here as well. So if you're on any of those platforms, I would certainly appreciate a follow, and know that I think 2 weeks in a row now we've done some extra clips, and I can show that banner again, I guess, if I can get back to it. Let me find it. Where we're doing clips. It's actually starting 2 weeks ago now. Doug is doing short clips of the show. Please help him by sharing those clips on your social media if possible. Totally free and easy way to help what I am doing. So anyway, those are the clips. I'm doing, I guess, about 8 clips. So I put out 2 on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 2 each day. And, they're shorter little pieces of some of the different stories that I've read through and talked about on Sunday night. So those clips are pretty easy to share. I did put them up on Rumble this last week. They are on there as well. I'll continue to try and do the links on Rumble. I mean, the clips on Rumble. And certainly we'll continue putting them on YouTube. And those channels are growing just a little bit. So that's good news. A few people subscribing, and then Rumble. And then I probably won't put them back on, upload them to BitChute and Brighteon. I don't feel like there's a huge benefit in doing that. I put the full show on those two platforms because there doesn't seem to be quite as many people on those two, but they're still good nonetheless. Let me take a look at the comments and just double check and make sure I didn't miss anything. Psychedelic Schoolhouse Rock from 1976. That's why, because I think I had a flashback last night. That's funny. Susan says, sounds like someone contributed something on, yes. Thank you, Danielle. Greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Yeah, so you see how that happens. That went through the old app here that I've got in my live stream plugin for Buy Me a Coffee. So it does work pretty well. So thank you, Danielle, for that contribution. And, again, everything helps. And very, very cool of you. So very cool. Yeah, high five, Danielle. Yes, Emily says. So thank you. Yeah, and then what else we have here? Emily says, feeling the heat in Vegas. Disgustingly hot today. Not the dry heat like normal. It's nasty and muggy. Huh. That is unusual, huh? Susan says, got fried in Indiana under a white hot sun. Unnatural thunderstorms. Yeah, well, I think we're getting similar weather to what you're getting, Miss Susan, for sure. We've had some storms as well. No one can convince me that what we're experiencing in our weather is natural. Yeah, hasn't been for a long time. High five to Danielle, for sure. Yes, thank you. William says, First Class Productions. You are interested and underrated, in my opinion. Well, if you mean me, thank you, William. I really appreciate that. That's very nice of you. Yeah, thanks. I do what I can. So yeah, we're trying to make it work with a small group, but it's a very loyal group. So thank you guys for being here. And I would also invite you guys, anybody who wants to join the band group, totally free. And that link is also on the link tree that you're looking at here. I guess I can show you. It is right here. It says band group. I know that's probably pretty hard to find, but some of you guys may already be in there. I don't know. Some of you for sure are. But yeah, that's totally free, and it's growing, again, very slowly, but it is growing, and always good to have good communications in there, folks that want to, post things that they're looking into, and maybe even prayer requests, things like that. That's also what the band group is for. So, yeah. Anyway, I guess that's it for me tonight. I guess we're a little bit earlier than normal. The next live stream will be, what is it, the 12th, July 12th, coming up at 9 p.m. will be the start time, 9 p.m. Central Time, Central U.S. So stay tuned for that. There'll be hopefully another good show coming up. And thank you guys for hanging out with me tonight for sure. Let me see if looks like I might have missed a few more comments. Much love to Doug and the Diamond family. Prayers for peace and blessings in the week ahead. Very well said from Miss Susan. I guess that was it. I think that was all of the comments. Looks like the live stream ended up working fine. I was a little concerned because I had a message on my screen saying that it was constantly trying to reconnect, but I guess it's been pretty stable and didn't see anybody had any issues. So that's really good news. And we will get together again next week at the same bat time, same bat channel, and that is, again, on the 12th, starting at 9 p.m. Central. So we'll look forward to seeing you guys then, and we'll see what happens in this crazy world we're in. See what happens, because things do seem to keep changing every single day, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. I don't know. It seems to be getting crazier and crazier as things tend to do when you're in the end times. And I think that this show does exactly that. It helps to prove that we are living in the end times by supplying breaking news and headlines that talks about that very thing. So anyway, wish you guys well, and we'll do it again next week. Love you guys, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
I'm quoting him. He said, "Tony, I'm going to rape your wife. I'm going to rape all of your grandchildren. And he said, the next time you go out of town, I'm going to kill them. And what the F are you going to do about it? End quote. This has gone on for years now. Behind me are several witnesses who can attest to what was said. They have video. They have made numerous complaints to the police and the sheriff's department.
The key here is he throws at least 5 punches, one of them connecting with his right temple, bloodying the pastor before the pastor then engages him in defense. But of course, the pastor was arrested and put out on $25,000 bond. And it's an example that the public is ready and the public is angry for people to start defending themselves, not just culturally, but physically. We're not calling for offensive violence. We are calling for men to stand up. Pastor Tony Spell, thanks for being here with us.
If you were to get a cursory study of this book, 1,189 chapters, 66 books, and 31,102 verses, you will find out that good always wins over evil. The more they afflict us, the more we multiply and grow. You meant evil, but God meant good. Psalm 82:3, defraud not one another, defend the poor and the needy. Come to the aid of the defenseless and the helpless. So what's happening in our society, Alex, is we're in the fourth turning. December of 1773, the Boston Tea Party sowed the seeds for the first turning. That's the Great American Revolution. Count 80 years to the beginning of the American Civil War. President James Buchanan would not make a ruling on the Dred Scott case. South Carolina secedes. You have the beginning of the American Uncivil War, several 100,000 brothers against brothers, fathers against sons. You go another 80 years. We go to Black Tuesday, October 25th, 1929, the crash of the stock market. Sow the seeds for the Second World War. We're now in the fourth turning, Alex. No nation has ever survived 4 turnings. But what's happening is, instead of this turning in the great unraveling of society, politically we're corrupt, religiously we're corrupt, financially we're corrupt. We have all these problems in our society. So the mystery of iniquity, which means the sin of lawlessness, is at work in our society. Only he who now letteth will let until we're taken out of the way. So what wants to happen in society is, the Lord says, I want you to beat your swords into plowshares. I want you to turn your spears into pruning hooks. But before we get there, before we get to the book of Isaiah, chapter 2 and 4, what we have is Isaiah 59:14. Judgment is backwards. Truth is fallen in the streets. Equity cannot enter in. If you would depart evil, you are condemned for that. So something is backfiring in this. We're at an inflection point in our nation, Alex. We're at a flashpoint in our nation. So the more the news tries to control the narrative between this man and myself, the more they crop the videos and try to create this George Floyd moment. We want the beginning of the videos that led up to the altercation that they're not releasing. They're not giving, the domestic terrorism. They're not giving the intimidation and threat of bodily harm, of sexual abuse toward minors and children. We don't have just a right to defend ourselves. We have a duty and an obligation to defend ourselves. We are those voices that stand up for the poor and for the needy, defend the defenseless, provide for the common good.
I'm not calling for offensive violence, but I am calling for men and women and everyone to get trained, get prepared to defend yourselves, because we're going into the fourth turning and a whole collapse of the old system, the rebirth of the new. The globals are trying to bring in their AI tyranny. That is going to fail. All things the devil set up, in the end, God will turn around and use for good.